Hi guys, it's me again. So hopefully if you watched the first video, you're now watching the second video, which now we're going to talk about how to make a line graph. All right, so in the first video, make sure you watch that first. Remember, I talked about how I like you guys to have not only the data document pulled up that looks like this, right? Not only to have this document pulled up, but to have a blank sheet of paper, or even better, graph paper if you have it at home, but a blank sheet of paper should work fine. Um, Pulled up so you guys can work on this as I'm talking about it so that we're doing it at the same time. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to make a line graph, right? Remember, previously we accomplished this side, and I'll move my computer so you guys can see a little bit better. Previously we accomplished this side here with this graph, right? So that graph is done. Remember we made a bar graph, all right? Now we're going to go ahead and work with this data. Now, if I didn't tell you we were making a line graph, how would we decide that? Right? Well, if you think back to our notes, remember we talked about that line graphs are a great way to summarize two pieces of data and to see how they're related. So this data says that we're comparing months of the year and the average temperature. And remember, often we're going to use line graphs to convey or to teach us how data changes over time as time moves forward. Right? Well, notice here, we've got months of the year moving forward. Time, a month moving forward. It's not an amount of time, but rather it's time moving forward. So we can tell by looking at this, we're going to make a line graph. Okay. So now we need to take this and put it on our graph paper. To do that, we need to ask ourselves, well, which one of these is going to be the x-axis and which one's going to be the y? Remember, the x will move left to right and the y moves up and down. Well, here's the easy trick. Time will always go on the x-axis because does time move up and down or does time move forward and back, right? If we look at this graph, we want to see time move this way. It'd be weird to watch time move up, right? That wouldn't make sense. So we want to see time move this way. So our x-axis is going to be time. So we can go ahead and look down here and we can go ahead and label this as time. And because I don't have very much room, I'm just going to write it over here to the side. So we've got time. And then I'm going to label the bottom as those months, okay? And I'm going to abbreviate, and you can either write up the whole word or abbreviate. But I'm going to start here with January, and then we've got February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. I might run out of room here, so I'm going to go ahead and erase this, and I'll try it again here real quick. So we should have January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Whew, barely fit on there. And I just used the first letter. At home, though, I would like you guys to write out the whole word or to use a three-letter abbreviation. Okay? And then we do need to label it as this is months of the year. All right, so we got our label and we've got our x-axis. Now we need to go ahead and work on our y-axis. Remember, that's the one that's moving vertically up and down. Well, looking at our data, that's going to be temperature. And that makes sense because does temperature move left and right or does temperature go up and down? Right? Temperature will always fluctuate up and down. So now we need to decide what is our scale going to be. And that's the trickiest part, remember, about a line graph is what kind of scale am I going to use? So if I look at my data, because that's what we talked about in class, is to determine a scale, we have to look at our data. And I always say with line graphs, you want to find out, well, what is your lowest data point and what is the highest data point? Okay. Well, looking at this, my lowest data point right here, -7 in January. So I know that whatever scale I use has to have at least -7 down here. Now I need to find my highest data point, which is 26, and that's in July. All right. So at the highest point, it has to at least go to 26. Well, now let's go ahead and find a range of numbers. And I think looking at that, I could go from -10 all the way up to 30. And I think counting by twos would be a good number to count by as well. So I'm going to go through and do that. So starting down here, We have -10. And then mine, because I have boxes, I'm going to categorize them by what they are. So I'm going to go -10 in the lineup, and I'm going to go -8, line up, -6. At home, what you can do is you can just space these out evenly as even numbers and going by twos. So -6, -4, -2. Then we've got 0. And now I can move up by 2. So 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. And actually, yes, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. Remember, I've got to go up to 26 at least, so I'll probably go up to 30. 22, 24, 26, 28, and 30. Perfect. So now I have my x-axis, my y-axis, and now I need a label. Well, what is my y-axis? Because if I don't do that, I don't know what these numbers mean. So I'm going to go ahead and write up here that this is temperature. And now I need to include, well, what unit of temperature is it? Because if you didn't know, there are 2 units, right? We can either be working in degrees Celsius or it can be in degrees Fahrenheit. And what we'll learn on Tuesday in class, if you're a remote learner, is that we will be using the metric system, which has degrees Celsius. All right, so we're going to put temperature in degrees Celsius. That's our abbreviation for it, with a circle and a C. Or we can also write out the word Celsius in the word degrees. Now, the fun part. Now we get to draw. So, looking at our data, let's make some points. And we just start by making data points. So looking at this, -7, January. That's going to be right here. Okay. And then I've got February, which is -4. That'll be about right here. March is 4 degrees. So notice temperature is increasing. April is at 12. So we're really increasing now. May is at 18. June is at 22. July is at 26. And notice that's our hottest month. So after this, we're going to start going back down. August is at 22. September is at 18. October is at 12. November is at 4. And finally, December is at -4. All right. All right. Now we can go ahead and create our line. Because remember, with the line graph, we want to see that line. Right now, we just have dots. So we got to put our line in. And with our line, all we have to do is connect each dot to themselves. And we'll see that the way they connect is a little bit different. So you want to make sure when you're connecting your dots that you're connecting in a way that it's the straightest path to the next dot. So notice that's the way that my graph looks a little bit. It's a little bit not smooth, but it has some ridges to it. Now we have to go back to our checklist. Have we done everything we need to when we're making a graph? Well, I have my scale and it's labeled, but I don't have a title yet. So looking at our data, we have months of the year and average temperature. What would be a good title? Well, the title that I immediately think of is, what about the word temperature over 1 year? So temperature over 1 year. There's our title to our graph. Do we need a key? No, because this is a line graph, not a pie chart, but we do need a legend. So what's one conclusion I can make about this? Well, I see that July was the hottest month. June was the not June, January was the coldest month. Or I could also say that our temperature changes over the course of 1 year. So I'm going to go with that one. Temperature changes month to month over 1 year. There's my conclusion. And normally that would go at the bottom of our graph. And that's it, right? We've completed our checklist. If I was gonna grade this, I would give us full credit because we made the right type of graph and we have all those different parts of it, and that's our line graph. All right. So at this point, you guys can now exit out of Edpuzzle and you can now start working on your own practice graph. All right. So in the next task, you'll see some data. You're going to open that up and I'm going to ask you guys to make your own graph and then take a picture of it and send it to either Mrs. Jacobson or myself, depending on who you have as a teacher, so we can see it and give you some feedback. Thank you and have a great rest of your Friday.